the amount of enemies that are going to be spawned in the game should be defined here in the game controller. Okay, we don't want to leave to the bouncer itself to say what position it is going to be. Okay, so let's use the game controller for this. We're going to open the game controller. So here we are, and remember that here in the start method we're setting all of these things, and we're also setting the game mode. So here where we set the bouncers, we should be able to tell how many bouncers we want to have. So in the game controller where we have these bouncers, I'm going to type public int bouncing enemies amount. Okay, so let's start with 1 by default, and we're going to change it to 2 in Unity. And here we're going to make a very simple loop. So we're going to perform this operation different times. So I'm going to type for int I equals to 0 while I is lesser than bouncing enemies amount I plus plus. Then we put everything else between curly braces, so it's going to be looking like this. And if we save this and go to Unity, we can simply come here in the game controller and change the amount of bouncers to 2. Okay, so I'm going to change that to 2. Now we're going to press the play button, and you notice that we have bouncers in different sides, okay, which is good. They're all in different positions. But at some times, they might spawn from the same place like it did right now, and that might be a bit unfair or basically just too hard for the player to avoid. And you notice that we even have some physical collisions between them. So there are some things we have to adjust. The first of them is we want to avoid bouncers to collide each other. We just want them to collide with the floor and with the player. So there is an easy way and a hard way to do this. And the easiest of them by far is by using the Unity built-in system for layers. We're going to click here on Edit, then Project Settings, and we're going to open Physics. And you're going to see here that we have a collision mesh, okay, a collision matrix. So here we can define which layer collides with each layer. So what we should do is we need to make a layer just for the enemy. So I'm going to choose the bouncing enemy here, and where it says layer, I'm going to click here, choose add layer, and I'm going to use this user layer 8 to name this enemy. Okay, so if we go back to the prefabs and we select the bouncing enemy, we're going to click on layer, and we're going to mark enemy. Okay, and it's going to prompt if we want to change the child objects as well. It's not necessary because the collider is in the root of this game object, of this prefab, but just to make sure it's going to be consistent, let's change that too. And since we're doing this, we can also select the other two enemies and change their layers to be enemy. Okay, and change children as well. Now we move back to Edit, Project Settings, and Physics right here, and notice that in this matrix we have this column that says enemy. So you're going to basically tell if enemies are going to collide with the default layer, with transparent effects, with ignore raycast, with water, with UI, and the most important thing is we need to define if enemies are going to collide with enemies. In this case, we're going to unmark this checkbox. So if we save this, just by doing these two little changes and pressing play, notice that the bouncers, they didn't collide themselves, okay? They are moving right one inside each other, which is exactly what we needed, okay? This is very important, so we're not going to have some weird experiences. And now another thing that we want to change here is we want to avoid that bouncers spawn in the same position. So we need to make a logic for this, and the game controller is going to control that. Let's do this in the next video.